Now, let's go to some of the latest in health and nutrition update information here. Getting more information. And two studies. This is from Andrew Orlowski in San Francisco. And it says the following. Email destroys the mind faster than marijuana. A study. Well, this is interesting. I'll quote this. Modern technology depletes human cognitive abilities more rapidly than drugs, according to a psychiatric study conducted at King's College London, and the curse of messaging is to blame. Email users suffered a 10% drop in IQ scores, more than twice the fall recorded by marijuana users in a clinical trial over 1,000 participants. Doziness, lethargy, and the inability to focus are classic characteristics of a spliffed head, but email users exhibited these particular symptoms to a startling degree, according to Dr. Wilson. The deterioration in mental capacity was the direct result of the trialist's addiction to technology. Email addicts were bombarded by context switches and developed an inability to distinguish between trivial and significant messages. Incredibly, 20% of the trialists jeopardized their immediate social relations by rushing off to check their messages in the middle of a conversation. What if someone did that in the middle of an orgasm? Can you imagine that? I can't come right now. I've got to go check my email message.
Do people do that to you, Gary?
They do, but only progressive socialists. Republicans will never stop an orgasm. Democrats don't care. They got more in the closet. A study of 100,000 school children in over 30 countries around the world testified that non-computer using kids perform better in literacy and math in schools than PC using children. Education experts have dubbed this, quote, the problem-solving deficit disorder. So what does this mean? This means that when we become addicted to a particular technology, we better be very careful, because then we give that too much significance. We stop problem solving. I don't write on a computer. I write the old-fashioned way. I write it out in longhand or I dictate it, because I want to be fully cognizant that I'm responsible and I don't want the computer in any way to enhance that. So I don't care about checking for spelling and grammatical errors. And I think that we've just lost our capacity to communicate, to use language. I believe we should learn one new word every week and use that word in the context that expands our capacity to think and communicate. Could you imagine if you learned 50 words a year? Do you know the average American after college only learns 2 new words every 5 years? Think of that. And that's why people talk the same way over and over again. So, and computers make us even more illiterate. And finally here, marijuana affects memory, attention, speech, and thinking. And this is from Stefan Antony, science editor at Softpedia News, and it says, this is provoked by its main component, cannabinol. I'll quote this. Researchers at Rutgers University have found that the marijuana's active ingredient, THC, interferes with the synchronized activity between neurons in the hippocampus of rats and decreases brain waves, impairing this way memory formation. The hippocampus is the brain's part playing a central role in memory and spatial navigation. How exactly marijuana acts on memories, attention, and speech, among other things, has never been fully understood. Normally, the area where the neurons in that region form groups that trigger action potentials or nerve impulses together, especially theta waves. And when the researchers injected THC directly into the hippocampus, the synchronized patterns, the tendency to occur at the same time of the firing neurons, were disrupted. Now, how do I know this is correct? Because I had a friend, and this guy was he was really a terrific person. And he would do this. He would call me, and he would say, hey, Gary, there's a phenomenal party going on tonight. You've got to get here. He lived down on Riverside Drive 72nd, nice apartment overlooking the park. I'd say, who's going to be here? So you name it, they're going to be here. So, all right, I went down there. And I got there, and there was just him. So I said, Winnie, where is everyone? He says, well, they're coming. So then he's on the phone saying, hey, you got to come here. Gary Knoll, everyone else in Gary Knoll's here. So then another person comes, and he says, such and Gary Knoll here. Everyone else is here. Gary
That's
was,
hilarious.
he was always high on marijuana, and he never stopped. I never saw him stop smoking. Well, I also noticed that over a period of time, you would have a conversation, you'd say, hi, what are you doing today? And suddenly it would be like, yeah, and yeah, okay. And you're realizing that there's something spatially in his conversation that was missing. And then it was the paranoia, and then it was going through transient psychoses, and then in and out. And over the years, all the people I knew smoked marijuana, justified that it's non-harmful, and I said, well, it certainly shouldn't be, I don't believe anyone using drugs should be thrown in jail, and I think it's stupid, but I don't believe people should be using them. And I said there's something happening in the brain, but there was no chemistry at that time to prove it. Now, I just finished a scientific report with over 153 different peer-review articles showing that there's an enormous amount of damage to the brain. Memory, cognition, spatial, and communication. You be around anyone who has smoked a lot of marijuana and see if you don't see paranoia. See if you don't see this kind of lack of communication. And then out of the clear blue, something that we would now call hyper tendencies or manic tendencies. They'll go manic and then drop back again. And because we used to think it was transient, it's not transient. This can really affect parts of the brain. So now the other study said that computers are worse than marijuana. Marijuana is worse. If you use a computer and are on marijuana, you are going to be as dumb as a brick.
What are you talking about, Gary?
So, put it out, hang it up, turn it off, and fall into life. So with that, we'll go over and say hello to Kristen. Oh, no, let's, Patricia, would you like to read for us?
Yes, this is a website, My Health Insight article, Electric Light May Pose Cancer Risk. Light at night might be a cancer risk. Could electric light pose a cancer threat? It might seem like the wildest of paranoid beliefs, but a growing number of scientists suspect it might be true. The reason? Turning on the lights after dark may affect a small number of clock genes that play a major role in controlling how cells live, die, and function, these researchers suggest. Specifically, the experts say, there is evidence that night lighting can help cause cancer by interfering with the molecular mechanisms that control cell death and multiplication. A number of these researchers are in London this week for a 5-day meeting where they are considering the evidence for a link between lighting at night and an increase in incidence of childhood leukemia.
That's interesting. That's one of the reasons I believe that there should be no light in a room except for a night light. People have to get up. And by the way, later this week I'm going to be doing on our Classroom on the Air arthritis and fibromyalgia. All right, thank you for that. And again, what that is one of the readers, and we're looking for readers. We could use about 15 readers based upon all the different shows and all the different topics, because in a given hour they'd be going around a table, each one doing articles. There'd be just massive amounts of information given. And now we have Kristen. Kristen?
This is from author Eric Margolis, who is a columnist for the Toronto Sun, and it's entitled Happy Birthday EU. Among the EU's major accomplishments, the well-managed euro, now the world's second reserve currency and a refuge from the sinking U.S. dollar. Stringent green regulations that make Europe the world's leading defender of the environment. In some European nations, a permit is now required to cut down a tree. The EU has also become the world's leading defender of human rights and international law, putting the erstwhile champion, the United States, to shame. The EU leads the world in defending the rights of animals and has made major strides combating the evils of factory farming, animal testing, and the barbaric fur trade.
That would be a comment that I would put up for people to discuss. because you have to look at the larger implications. The dollar is falling. The European Union is taking the advantage of giving strength and voice and commitment to the environment and to human rights. We are lagging, but to discuss why we're lagging and what we are doing in a positive way so that you would have some balance in that presentation. But that would be a perfect issues. In fact, one of the things I'm going to be doing on this show, starting tomorrow, in fact, is I'm going to read some articles that will inspire people to talk out and speak up on an issue, and then they could call in and share their points of view. But that's good. Thank you. I'm Gary Knoll. Back in the studio, we have Richard Polneski. Hi, Richard.
Hi, Gary. How you doing? You know, we just spoke a little bit about Hillary Clinton in a comedic fashion. Well, in today's New York Post, there is a feature here called Race for the White House, and it says, Barack, hard for Hillary to shake, and the letter S in shake is a big dollar sign. What do you make of that?
What I make of this is that the election is no longer about the principles of helping us individually and collectively as a society improve. Rather, it is about making the people who are running for the White House almost into cult-like figures. We will spend close to $1 billion for someone to get elected. In the last election, it was over $700 million. That means that if you do not have the money to run for office, you're not going to get elected. So if you have better principles, if you had a way of cleaning up the environment, if you had a way of making sure everyone had health insurance, if you had a flat tax at 10% so we could actually save some of the money that we earn, if you had a way of stopping the influence of lobbyists and ban all lobbying, so lobbyists no longer wrote the actual laws that protect and profit their industries, and looked at what was important for the average person. And if you did something about health care where you actually taught people the lessons of a healthy diet and exercise and sponsored that nationally, then none of those are all that expensive. But none of those benefit special interest groups. The special interest groups are the ones who gave $100 million, the pharmaceutical industry alone, $100 million, to both Democrats and Republicans like in the last election. Because of that, they passed a $500 billion Medicare pharmaceutical bill. That means you give $100 million to politicians, you buy them, you get to write a 1,000-page bill. It's given to every member of Congress that morning. Late that night, they pass the bill, 3 o'clock in the morning. They're supposed to have a 15-minute window to open it up for yeas or nays. It stays open for 3 hours. At the 15-minute mark, when it was over, there was no more, they didn't have enough votes to pass it. Within 3 hours, they arm twisted and got people who had been nay against the bill to go yay. Now we find out that the chief lobbyist, the number one person in Congress who caused that bill to pass, went to work at $2 million a year for the pharmaceutical industry as his chief lobbyist. And 15 other people who caused that bill to pass in Congress all went to work for the pharmaceutical industry as lobbyists, very high paid. What that tells me is that these elections have far less to do with getting the best person to represent the best issues, the important issues, and to help us go forward, than it does getting people who will be there to protect the interest of the special interest group. If you look at all the people running for office today, with the exception of Dennis Kucinich, all the top people are in the pockets of the special interest group, whether it's the trial lawyers or whether it's the some other large group, the oil cartels, or multiple people. So why do we not see anything fundamentally change? whether it's a Democrat or Republican who's gotten elected. Why did the pharmaceutical industry, the military-industrial complex, energy cartels continue to grow? Because their people are being bought, sold, and put into office. That's the message I get behind that. I'm Gary Null. Thank you all for listening. Look forward to sharing more on our next program. Have a nice day.